What is up, Retromaniacs? Happy New Year. My name is Mike, and I am from Mike's Retro Trading Cards, and I'm joined by two men that I'm sure had a wild New Year's Eve, but I guarantee you, nowhere near as wild as 15 years ago with the couch, the tree, and the apartment door. They are Joe Day and EP Erica Palik. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. First off, last night was pretty wild. I'm drinking a Gatorade, not a beer.
Wow.
Okay, so that tells you something. I need the
Wow.
electrolytes. And listeners who have been with us since the beginning, notice I'm not wearing a pit hat. I lost all of them. I don't know how it happened last night. I lost every single one of my. I cannot find a single pit hat anywhere in my house. I have like 15 of them. All gone. So I don't know what happened last night. It got
Did
kind
you
of
take
wild and crazy.
them all with you? What?
I'm going to say yes. I really don't know the answer to that question.
You only have one head.
I have one head, but apparently I needed all 15 of those hats for this head. So yes, that's why you can see the baldness that is Joe Day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy night, wild and crazy. Not as crazy as that night 2 years ago, but it was pretty crazy.
We're much younger then.
We were much younger.
Yes.
My shoulder still hurts.
I'm looking forward to the hangover like tweets later when you're trying to track down where all your hats are, like when you're backtracking and talking to everybody and trying to figure out what's going on.
Texting all my friends, being like, "Did I leave a hat at your house? Is that possible? Where's that Pitt hat at?" And Pitt had a great day. Maybe that's why I took all the hats. I'm like, look, Pitt beat UNC in basketball. They beat UCLA in football. I got to wear 15 hats to these New Year's Eve parties. But yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. That crazy night a few years ago that Mike was talking about many years ago at this point.
15, actually.
I'm the one that threw
15th anniversary.
I'm the one that threw up on the tree. That was me. I take full responsibility for that one.
I did it in a bucket by the couch, and then I rallied. I did rally after that.
Yes.
And I threw my shoulder out trying to open up our friend who was living next to Mike at the time, trying to bust through his door.
But you didn't have to bust through his door, did you?
Yeah. What was the resolution to that, Joe? You were trying to shoulder the door in, but
it was an outdoor.
You just pulled the door out.
It was an open outdoor, and I was trying to shoulder it in. Yeah, it didn't turn out great.
The bad thing was the person who actually lived at that house didn't remember that his door opened out either. So it really wasn't your fault.
Well, he had as many shots in champagne as us, though, right? Wasn't that?
He did. Yeah,
probably. Yeah. So. Wow, good times.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you had a great New Year, happy and safe. I hope everybody's with us today. Let's get things started here. Want to talk a little bit. We didn't get to touch on this last week, but there was a lawsuit that was filed by the company Alt against BGS Grading. Paul Lesko on Twitter, one of our favorite follows, had put about this lawsuit. Basics of the story was that Alt originally bought a Steph Curry Topps Chrome Gold Refractor rookie card that was graded a BGS 9.5. And apparently, I guess, for whatever reason, they decided they wanted to crack it out and send it to PSA, obviously, to try to increase the value on it. PSA 10, I'm sure, is worth a lot more. And when it came back from PSA, they said it had been trimmed. They were like, okay, a little weird. They sent it to BGS, and BGS agreed. They sent it back that it had been trimmed as well. So Alt was obviously pretty upset with the fact that BGS had slabbed the card as a gem mint and it had been trimmed. So kind of interesting, though, they cracked it out. So it's going to be a fun lawsuit to watch because it really does have wide-reaching implications on the hobby, in my opinion. What are you actually getting when you buy a graded card? What are they guaranteeing you? Where does that guarantee end? Give me your thoughts, Joe.
It ends when you crack it open. What do you do? If you sent that card for a crossover, right? Which no one wants to do because they're afraid crossovers are a sham. And they really are. PSA is not going to cross over a 9.5 from BGS or a 9.5 from SGC or whoever to a PSA 10. They're just not going to do it. They're going to look, it's another label, it's another slab. We're not going to give you a better grade than this other company did. So people don't want to do crossovers. They want to crack stuff open and hope to get the bump up. The problem is, Once you crack it open, the guarantee ends. You took that out of its slab that it was slabbed in, which I've done. I've done it. I've
Mhm.
cracked, you've cracked,
Yeah.
like people crack stuff open, but you're putting the risk is on you at that point. And Mike, I was going to say, throw the video up, Mike. But I cracked open a Brady BGS BGS 9 to try and get a PSA 10. It was a Brady Bowman Chrome. As soon as the first time I snapped the top clips, that guarantee is gone. If I damage it, if it was trimmed, if it was a fake or whatever that got slabbed, at that point it's on me. So I don't know what Alt is expecting to get out of this lawsuit because again, they cracked it open. Who knows? The judge, whoever is over, over this case should say, well, do you have a constant video of you cracking it open?
And they don't.
They
they
don't.
don't have a video. Yeah.
So they're sitting there and they're saying, well, it's trimmed. Well, maybe they trimmed it. How do you prove otherwise? Maybe they trimmed it to try and make it a 9.5 to a 10, a 9.5 to a 10. So how do you prove one way or the other that you didn't do something shady with it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they essentially just voided the warranty. When you crack that thing open, like everything is off the table. And especially if you don't have video from the point where you rake it open until the point where you put it in an envelope and send it to PSA,
Right.
constant video like for the entire time. Like it's just you gotta like you gotta question. I mean they're filing a lawsuit, so essentially they're making it seem like at least that they haven't done anything unscrupulous, but we don't. Nobody can say that. The judge, it's got to be.
You don't know.
Yeah, the judge
Beyond a reasonable doubt, there's no way you can prove that.
Yeah. Just like you can't overturn a play. Like it needs to be like what's the term?
Irrefutable evidence.
Yeah. Like they're not going to overturn the play. Like it's like I don't think I see this going in BGS's favor, the lawsuit. But
as it should.
It will be interesting to see. Like you said, Mike, this is a precedent-setting thing, and we're probably considering how much money's involved and stuff. Like we're going to see more like precedent-setting lawsuits like this, I'm guessing.
Well, we've talked about this on the pod numerous times, how I don't think judges know about cards. Like it seems like every lawsuit that comes out in front of a court, it seems like it doesn't go the way it should.
That's true.
As a collector or investor or whatever, it feels like it goes a way it shouldn't go because the judges and the people involved in the case really don't know about cards that much. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out because if you get a judge who has no idea what's going on and maybe they do see some fraud in this because they don't realize, well, when you crack a case open or crack a slab open, there's no proof that you didn't do something to it. So, and as an aside, Sports Card Radio has a kind of it's usually a throwaway comment, but when they look at like golden auctions or whatever, like at recent sales, they talk, I think it was the, a Jeter rookie, an SP rookie, and it was a BGS 9.5, which was way cheaper than a PSA 10 that was on Golden as well. And the one guy from Sports Card Radio go, well, the BGS 9.5 is probably trimmed. Like throwaway line, but it's kind of proving his point a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the lawsuit goes, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but you would think that the fact that they cracked it out and they don't have any proof that they didn't do anything to the card is really going to be their downfall. Like,
right.
It would be a much more interesting case if it would have been a crossover still slabbed up and they said this doesn't measure up right. So, I don't, at the end of the day, it's probably going to establish, and rightfully so, that if you crack a card out of the case, you're on your own. And that's really the way it should be. I don't think any of us feel any differently about that.
Alt is basically trying to get all the reward with none of the risk. And that's not how it works. If you're going to crack something open, you're going to inherit a lot of risk in that proposition, so you can't have it just perfect for you. Like if you crack it open and send it and get a 10, that's awesome. But there's an inherent risk that it could come back a worse grade too. I mean, what would they have done if PSA said, oh, it's a 7? Would they have sued BGS then as well? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're inheriting a lot of risk when you crack that open. and it can't just be a one-way street. It can't just be all reward and no risk.
Are they? Do you know what they're seeking? Like what the image is? Like what their like is
I think they were. I could be wrong. I think they're looking for like the market value of the card.
okay, like
Of a 9.5 or a PSA 10.
Probably the 9.5, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. I mean, just my thinking is, are they seems like maybe they're trying to set a precedent. Like they're trying to say, hey, this is the thing we need to figure out in the hobby and, legally, as opposed to just saying we want $1 million for this. And
suffering.
and they're they're just trying to get a settlement or something like that. But it sounds like if that's the case, then they're looking to set a precedent and kind of legally say this is how this works, kind of thing. Maybe
people do need to realize though that a grading company is giving you an opinion, like really, like that their opinion of it. Even stuff with like cards being trimmed, it's really an opinion. Like it's not necessarily an exact science on whether something is or not trimmed. Like somebody is giving you their opinion. Maybe a card's not the right size. It could have been cut wrong at the factory. Yep. It could have been trimmed by somebody. Like these are the things that you don't know for sure. Again, you're never going to be 100% sure. Just like when we talk about the grading of autographs, there's no way of guaranteeing either way whether something is or isn't real. It's their best opinion, and they're giving you an opinion on a grade. I feel like, this is going to sound weird, I think, coming from me, but I feel like you're accepting the fact that you're getting their opinion. Like you're not getting a guarantee of anything. Like if a card comes back a 9, and you're not guaranteed that card is mint, you're guaranteed their opinion of that card is a 9. And I think that, that's a little bit comes into this. Like people are so absolute sometimes about, oh, well, they did this grading company did this, or this grading company did that. Again, they're giving you an opinion. If you're sending them your cards, you kind of need to realize they're just giving you their best opinion on that. You might not like it, but that's what it's going to be. We all get grades we don't think are right. This is like a little different level of that, but still, like you're not, I don't really think they're selling you a guarantee necessarily on stuff. Yeah. Like the authentication of a card, again, they're giving you their best opinion on that. They're not going to be right 100% of the time. And I don't know. I feel like you need to understand that there's no absolute, this is real, this is fake. And I think the courts may end up deciding too that that's the way it is. They're giving you an opinion on whether they think it's real or not. I don't know that there's really any guarantee that should have to go along with that.
Like I've opened up packs of cards, Marvel Universe, and I sent cards in to get graded, and they came back as altered authentic. And I'm like, I literally pulled this from a pack. Like I didn't trim it. I mean, and that's to your point, Mike. I mean, you never really know. And that was someone's opinion at a grading company saying this card is authentic, but it's been altered. Well, I didn't alter it. I mean, stack of Bibles. I didn't alter it.
Are you sure?
Right.
Now we know how EP got such good grades from PSA, right?
Dude, you owe me.
I do.
But Joe's really picking up his game.
I am. I got all sorts of contraptions here to perfectly get those corners. But yeah, you really don't know, and it is someone's opinion that it's authentic. It is someone's opinion that's a 9 versus a 10 or an 8 versus a 9 or whatever. The guarantee, at the end of the day, the guarantee ends as soon as you crack it open. I've made the joke that once it's slabbed and it says it's a 10, it's always a 10, baby. You're never, there's nothing, no one can say otherwise, even though you can clearly look at the card and it's not a 10, but it's in that slab. So that's all that matters. Once you crack it out of that slab, it's no longer whatever grade was on it. It's whatever the next guy's opinion is. And that was the problem with this case, whether it came back trimmed or whether it came back PSA 8. at a certain point, you're putting the risk, you're inheriting a ton of risk when you do that.
It's an interesting point there, Joe. Like, what happens? I mean, eventually, is this going to lead to somebody suing over something, sending in a BGS 9.5 that comes back an 8? You know what I mean? Like, the PSA says this is an 8.
Yeah.
Well, it was originally a 9.5. Is there going to be something down the pike with like that? It's pretty much a
We're a
similar
very
thing, right?
litigious country.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if you have the ability to sue someone for something, people will take that opportunity. Ask Jeff Wilson, I guess. But
Oh, great! Now you're going to get us sued.
we're gonna get sued. But yeah, I mean, we're a very litigious country, and if people see an opportunity, they're gonna take it. And I wouldn't be surprised if someone stupidly cracks open a very high value card and sends it in to be graded by another company. Who knows what could happen.
I think a really good example of that, Joe, is you brought it up, the SP Jeter, the 93 SP Jeter, because that and the PSA 10 is just an astronomical difference compared to the 9, compared to the 8.
Compared to the 9.5 from BGS.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, the numbers, I don't know what the difference
huge.
is off
It's
the top of my head, but it is
crazy.
huge. It's ridiculous. So
yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Everybody has been concerned all year about the IRS 1099K $600 level tax reporting that was going to go into effect January of 2023. Acting IRS Commissioner Doug O'Donnell announced this week that they would delay the implementation of it until next year to give them time, give accountants, everybody time to better understand the new law and everything. It's currently going to stay at the $20,000 and 200 transaction level for the 1099K. And obviously, this was a big thing that everybody was worried about. And
everyone but EP, because he doesn't sell cards. So
well, this is true, yes.
Yeah.
But my initial thoughts on it, I'm glad. I hope it gives them another year to rethink things. I'm not advocating not paying your taxes. Like, if you're going to do this and you're going to sell cards, you need to pay your taxes. But there are so many ways that this was going to impact people that it shouldn't impact. People send money to each other for all kinds of different things. You pay for a meal, for part of a vacation. If somebody sends you that money, goods and services, by accident, you could trigger a 1099K. Now you have to try to explain that on your taxes. Like,
right.
There's a lot of it goes a lot deeper than just people selling sports cards, selling stuff on eBay. You're going to be way too many people that have sold one thing on eBay that had never done this, that doesn't do it for a living, that we're going to get these forms in the mail and not have any idea what they were for. So I'm glad they're going to revisit it. Don't celebrate that we don't have to pay taxes now if you sell your cards. Like, again, that's not how it works. If you're selling cards, you're making money on cards, you're supposed to be paying taxes on it. But what are your thoughts about them delaying this?
For me, I'm ecstatic, because I mean, I triggered, I think it was my first sale of 2022. I think I sold a Brady rookie or something. Like, one transaction, I had already triggered the 1099K, and I think eBay sends out, or maybe it was PayPal, was like, oh, hey, FYI, you just went over X amount of dollars, you're going to get a 1099K. So for me personally, as someone who, hey, I pay my taxes, don't worry, everyone. But this was huge for me, because I sold the lion's share of my cards this year. Like, I don't plan on selling anywhere near the volume that I did, just because I was going through my old collection, and I was going through cards that I had graded from that, and I sold quite a few in 2022. So for me personally, it's great. I'm very pleased that I don't have to go through the rigmarole of, the 1099K. But for next year, I mean, people need to start taking this seriously, and you need to start calculating every expense you have. And we're going to talk a little bit deeper into this, but you got to make sure that you are taking this very seriously and keeping your your eyes on what you're going to be selling and the expenses you're going to incur when doing it.
Yeah, I know. I'm relieved too. Just because my last tax sale pushed me over the mark. I don't sell a ton on eBay. Sell a lot of like $1 cards and $3 cards on eBay. That's kind of where my cards are there. But the two stack sales pushed me over it. So I'm over that $600 mark, and so I was a little concerned about it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure what to do with it. I do take my taxes to somebody who does it. She prepares them, but just at the price of what TurboTax is anyway. So, but I mean, if I have any questions or I can ask her about it, because when I was selling the cards back in 2012 and 2012, 2013, and kind of like reporting all that sort of stuff, I needed somebody to go over all that stuff. So I still go to her, even though I could do it myself. Just I feel better about it.
And that's definitely a recommendation I have. Like, anybody who's selling cards, have any question, go to an accountant. Like, just meet with an accountant. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, don't take advice from people you're watching on YouTube. Don't
take advice from us
people on Twitter. Not advice from us. Other than going to an accountant. That's the
Right.
advice
Yes.
you need to listen to. But
talk to a real expert.
yes, they and it'll be worth your while to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I wanted to springboard this into a bigger discussion about running your card hustle as a business. Like, a lot of people selling a lot of cards in a lot of ways, and like, my opinion is you need to run it as a business. Like, you need to pay your taxes. You need to keep track of your sales. You need to keep track of your expenses. And I'd like to just, have a little discussion about this and some of the different areas about that. Like, I want to start off with the first thing everybody, I feel, should do if you're selling cards is to have a separate account for your card business. Like, even if you don't consider it a business, like, separate your personal money and the card money. If you're selling cards and buying cards, absolutely get a separate account. It's going to make everything a lot easier to keep track of, keep things organized. The last thing you really want to be doing when you find out at the end of the year that you have to pay taxes on stuff because you went to the accountant and they're like, oh yeah, you have to do that, is to have all your personal expenses and everything mixed in with your business. Like, it's so hard to do. And, I know I've recommended it to you guys too. Like, it's the first place I feel like everybody should start is getting a separate account for your cards.
Yeah, I have a PNC virtual wallet or whatever, and that's where whenever I sell something on eBay every week, or depending, like, I didn't sell a few things here the last couple of weeks, but I make sure everything gets direct deposited into that account. When I do stack sales, I then like, my PayPal, my personal PayPal is linked to my normal checking account. I then transfer everything to that hobby account and make sure that it is separate. And I keep a very, very detailed document, a spreadsheet with every single sale I have listed that's going into that hobby account. So I make sure, you did recommend that to us, Mike, when we first started selling stuff on eBay, when eBay was doing the payments themselves, the payouts themselves. Was that the beginning of 2022? I believe they started doing that, or was that 2021?
It might have been 2021, but
I think it was partway through. It was like the middle of the year in 2021.
Yeah. So, like, once eBay started doing that, that's when I created a whole separate account to direct deposit stuff. But yeah, it just makes it clean. You just want to keep it as clean as possible, so you don't have to worry about the IRS coming after non-hobby funds. You have to take every risk in consideration.
Mine's not quite as not super duper clean, but I have a separate bank account where every sale I make on eBay goes into that account. Like, all the money from eBay goes into that account, which I do enjoy that. My PayPal, I do like, there are some things that come out of my PayPal automatically, like my HBO Max, that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's enough details on there that, like, I feel like it won't be like
It's easy enough to be
it
able
won't be
to pull
cumbersome.
those out. Yeah, you're not going
it
to
won't
add
be
those
super
as an
cumbersome.
expense. Yeah.
Right. I use my PayPal to like to send money for pay my cousin for vacation or whatever. Like, but
or
again,
pay me goods and services for.
I apologize if I pushed you over the
PSA.
600. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I'd
But,
make you pay my taxes if that was the case, dude.
Yeah, but so I'm like, I feel like it's not like I'm using my PayPal for a billion things, and I'd be able to pick out the ones that don't really count. So it's not super clean, but I did take your advice and I created that account. So all my eBay money goes right into that account.
That's one of the reasons I actually set up a new account too a couple of years ago, because I did have a business PayPal account, but it was from back when I owned the shop. So like for all those years since then, like I've gotten a lot of personal stuff intertwined with it. So I was just like, no, breaking that off, because like trying to do my expensing and stuff at the end of the year was was a disaster, trying to go through every transaction and figure out what was what. But that leads me into my next point is, if you're watching this and you run it like a business, is going to seem really simple, but you do need to keep track of your expenses. Like this is something that anybody who might be watching this might end up getting a 1099K once they drop the level. If they do, you need to keep track of your expenses. You can take those off of the sales that you have. So if you're not selling stuff at a profit, you're not going to have to pay taxes, but you need to keep track on stuff. If you bought a card for $200 and you ended up selling it for $150, keep track of that. So so that $150, once that starts going toward your total, you have also the $200 that you paid for it to show that it was a loss. So make sure that you accurately keep track of that stuff if you and know what you can expense too. Again, talking to an accountant is going to help you if you don't understand this, but simple stuff like the shipping. If you're selling cards, if you're paying shipping, those amounts, keep track of that. That's an expense. What you're using to ship with. If you're buying shipping supplies, they're expenses, legitimate expenses that you can use. So you want to keep track of all that stuff. Keep track of the records. Keep good records of all this stuff. So at the end of the year, when you're showing you sold so much, you also know how much you spent. So you're not paying tax on your sales, you're paying tax on your profit.
I have a non-clinical version of OCD. So, and Mike can attest to this from knowing me for a long time.
Yes, okay.
I've never been diagnosed, but so with expenses, I literally, if I use penny sleeves when I do a stack sale, I actually used X amount of penny sleeves, I used X amount of bubble mailers, I used X amount of team bags, and I calculate everything.
It's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. You should see I have like a Google Doc that I put in. I sold 50 cards to this guy, and it calculates how much in penny sleeves that I use, how much in team bags.
How much free time do you have? Holy crap!
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's crazy, but that kind of stuff makes me happy. I enjoy that. Right. I really, really enjoy doing that. Like calculating, so if a card sold for 50 cents, it really only sold for 42 cents after fees and penny sleeves and a portion of a team bag, all of that stuff. But that's the extreme version.
Yeah,
that's the extreme version.
It's taking it to a micro level that you don't necessarily
I
need to
keep
go
track
to.
of every expense. I keep track of every expense. So if you're a touch of OCD like me, you'll enjoy stuff like that. But to your point, Mike, if I buy a card, that goes on my expense stock, regardless of what it is. If I'm completing a set to then sell it, all the singles I buy, that goes onto that expense stock. So I can kind of calculate back and forth what I'm putting into the hobby before I even sell something.
So Mike, I gotta ask if it's okay. You're the expert in this, so I just want to ask if it's okay that when I buy a big box of bubble mailers, I make that my expense, or when I buy a bag of penny sleeves, that's how I mark down as expenses.
Yeah,
I don't need to keep track of each individual sleeve.
You don't need to.
Wow.
break down each individual penny sleeve. I mean, if you
Okay.
want to, more power to you.
Yeah,
Go
if
ahead.
you have
But
fun with it, yeah.
I mean,
Okay, just want to make
you
sure.
can typically just take the cost of the case of
I feel
penny
attacked right
sleeves and
now, and I don't
what
like
I'm
it.
just
No,
showing a macro
Listen.
level and a micro level. You presented one side of the coin, we're giving the other. You know, they both equal the same thing, but at the end of the day, one is way less work and the other is way more. But hey, if you enjoy it, does it really work? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the other things, one of the trickiest parts of being in the card business is, you know, cash purchases. A lot of that going on, you know, people that buy cards at a card show to sell on eBay. You know, this is tricky because you buy a card from a dealer from cash, they're not typically going to give you a
They're
receipt.
giving you a receipt. Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend asking, you know, if it doesn't hurt to ask, but they're more than likely not going to give you a receipt. So that really makes it tricky because you can't really prove
Right.
what that money was spent for. So my recommendation, what I do is like anytime you do buy something, like get yourself a journal or something and like write every specific cash transaction that you made down. So, you know, if you ever get audited by the IRS, I have no idea. You know, talk to accountant again about the best way to do that. But what I do is I like to write everything down so I know, okay, I spent, you know, $200 on this card. I paid cash at a card show. So that way, you know, at least if you have that card and you can show you sold that card, you can show that, you know, there was an expense to it. Again, at the end of the day, I don't know if you get audited by the IRS, if what they're going to accept, what they're not, but you're definitely going to have a lot better shot if you kept track of every transaction that you made with cash. You can say what it was for instead of just going, oh, well, I spent $10,000 in cash on expenses. Yeah, they're going to laugh
Right.
at you and they're
Right.
going to tell you no. So that is like, that's a tricky part of all this. Like there is a lot of cash transactions going on in cards, and you know, we know why dealers like to do
Right.
that and not give you receipts for it, because then they don't have to report it as income. But it makes it tricky when you're trying to buy something to sell.
Right.
I also think you're seeing a lot more collectors, and collectors have some massive collections right now. A lot of them trying to sell at these shows because they can sell it and get cash as opposed to and then they don't have to report it. So, Mike,
Absolutely.
you've been a business owner for a long time, like right out of college, right? Have you
Mhm.
ever experienced an audit or been part of anything like that? Like, you know, you run another business now. Has that ever been something that you had to experience?
Knock on wood, no.
Great.
But I mean, now I
It's gonna
definitely
happen this year
will.
now.
Absolutely,
Jesus.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, you try. That's why you want to try to do everything right. Try to keep your records as clean
Right.
as you can, because if they look through it, and you know, I have an accountant for all my businesses that do this stuff for me. They do my personal and my business stuff. So you know, I like having that too, because they're going to be there with you. They're doing stuff. They can help, you know, make sure you're doing stuff right. So again, if you're going to sell cards and try to make a business and make some money out of it, definitely see an accountant. I can't say it enough, because they're the people that know, and they're the people that can give you the advice you need to know. And, you know, again, if you get audited, you're going to be really happy that you have that accountant, because, you know, unless you're just not listening to what they tell you, you know, you're going to end up a lot better in the audit.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about keeping track of everything. I mean, even like PC stuff, I keep track of. Like, you know, you never know because you could sell that down the
Yeah,
road,
absolutely.
right? So, you know, I collect, you know, Brady cards. I put all of that in my expense doc too, because again, you know, maybe I'll sell, you know, if I have a double of something, or if I want to, you know, sell to move up into a better grade or a lower numbered version of it. You know, I sold a Fleer Ultra just a base Brady rookie, I put that purchase and that expense on my docs because I wanted to move up into a gold medallion version of it. But you want to keep track of all of that stuff, because while it is PC in your mind, it may at some point be something that you're going to be moving on from or selling. So you want to make sure you catalog that as well.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is like our hobby is expensive, like super expensive, and also your likes and dislikes and your opinions change over time. And so maybe this card that you think is like the greatest thing in the world, a year from now you're like, you know what, that's the greatest thing in the world. I want to go get that, and so I need to sell this thing, and it's expensive, and that's why. If you again, if you're doing anything like this regularly, like Mike said, talk to an accountant, turn this in, like treat it like a business, because it's expensive.
Yeah, it is. And, I don't know if there's ever anything that's truly PC,
Right.
know, like you said, circumstances change. Like, you may need money, you may want to get something else, you may not like the person you collect anymore. There's a lot of reasons that you may decide to sell a PC card. So, it is a good idea to expense those out too and keep track of all that stuff, so when you go to sell it.
And you could easily say, oh, well, this is inventory, because at some point I could sell it. I mean, it's completely possible. Maybe I'm just holding it to keep until Brady wins another Super Bowl or whatever, or retires, and he gets a little boom in his values. Yeah, sure. If his card's triple in value, it went from being a PC item to let's get this out the door. It turns into inventory real quick.
And one other thing I want to bring up too is paying taxes. Obviously, whether or not you're getting a 1099K, if you're like run your business the right way, keep track of your sales, keep track of your expenses. You make a profit, put it on your taxes, pay your taxes on it. Again, go to an accountant, get their advice. But my advice, pay your taxes, like do it the right way. You don't ever have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about the IRS saying, oh, you owe us all this money because you were selling cards and not reporting it as income. One thing that a lot of people don't think about, though, is sales tax. And, if you're running it as a business in your state, you do have to pay sales tax. If you're selling stuff on eBay, they take care of it for you. eBay is a marketplace. They collect the sales tax. They pay it out to the other companies. But, like I run stack sales. I don't charge my customers sales tax on it, but I'm still responsible for putting those sales down and paying the sales tax on it. So that's something I don't think a lot of people think of very often. I know there are some card shows out there that are making dealers have to have a tax license set up and stuff, like they should, because it's just something people don't often think about. But you are responsible for paying sales tax on this stuff too, and you don't want to have the state catch up with you at some point and go, oh, by the way, you owe us $3,000 because you never paid sales tax. So that's something to definitely look into as well. If you don't know, again, talk to your accountant. They'll let you know. But I really feel like the best thing to do is like take these topics that we're talking about. If you want to sell cards as a side hustle to make some money, like understand these different parts, then go talk to an accountant and talk to them about all these parts so they can give you the advice you need so you know the right way to do things. I'm not trying to give anybody the right and wrong way. The whole point of this is to throw out these different ideas, these different areas. So people that might not really understand how their card hustles the business might understand it a little better, and they can take it to their accountant and help them understand how it works too. Because a little different than a lot of other businesses, like I said.
And we've talked about it in terms of like the legal cases, like judges probably don't understand cards. I wouldn't be surprised if accountants really don't understand cards to a certain extent and don't realize that it's so. You might have to do some educating for them as well. But yeah, I think the big takeaway from this is be prepared. At the end of the day, maybe it would be even better if they didn't change the tax, or if they did change the tax code, because that way you would get that 1099 and you would know exactly what you need to do. I think a lot of people hearing this news might be thinking, oh, just like we're joking around, but just like I was like, oh, you don't have to pay your taxes. No, you do. But now you might be confused if you're not getting that form, right? I mean, people could be honestly like, oh, I don't have to do anything now because I didn't get this
there's a lot of
1099.
confusion in general, regardless of that.
right.
Like a lot of people just, think that they don't pay taxes. Oh, I'm just selling this stuff. Like, but that's not how
Yeah,
it works.
yeah.
You do. If you're making
Right.
money selling anything, whether it's cards or ice cream cones or whatever you're selling, you have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
Ice cream
It's
cones.
income. Anything that's income
Yeah.
needs to go on your taxes. And go ahead, AP.
I was just gonna say, like, Mike, you started out by saying running your card like side hustle as a business, but the bottom line is, if you're making income from it, it is essentially a business. You're getting income from it,
Absolutely.
and it's that's the. I just wanted to say that, like don't treat it like a business, like it is a business, and the IRS is going to look at it like a business, and they're going to treat it like here's this income coming in. So,
and if they audit you, remember, even though you didn't get a 1099K, they can look at your PayPal account and then see all these transactions that may have come in there. So, just because you don't have a form from them doesn't mean if they decide to audit you, they don't go, well, what are these $18,000 in
Right.
payments you received from PayPal?
Why did your bank account go up $20,000 this weekend?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand.
So,
which it's kind of funny. I mean, we're talking about like we sold some stuff on eBay. We did some sack sales. We did this. We did that. A lot of the people in this hobby, they're moving and shaking $5,000 cards, $10,000 cards. You watch some of these YouTube videos. Oh, hey, I'm gonna buy this $5,000 card and then I'm gonna sell it for $7,000. Like, they're not playing in the sandbox we're playing in. I mean, that's a whole different level. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of folks that do this as a big time side hustle, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still getting a 1099, because we were talking about Justin Herbert cards going for, a $20,000, $50,000 card. It's like a lot of these are actual. They're going to trigger that 1099 regardless.
A lot of people are, yeah. I mean, I've gotten a 1099K for years. Like, I sell a lot on eBay. I've sold guitar parts. I've gotten into cards too. So, I've gotten them most years. I think maybe 1 year out of the last 8 or 9, I didn't get one. But yeah, and that was only because of actually when eBay changed over their payments from PayPal, because all my it was, since it happened in the middle of the year, I had quite a bit from eBay going into that new account, and I had quite a bit from PayPal, but neither one was 20,000. It was combined, but so people that are doing it at that level, like, we already know this, we've already been doing this, but it's like the people who aren't the big time people, the people that are just thinking like it's a hobby, it's a side hustle. Oh, I do this here and there, that aren't making that much money, but like also kind of thinking in their head that, oh, not ever thinking about having to pay taxes. And you do.
Technically, in the yard sale, like if you have a yard sale, like, I mean, you're supposed to report that, yeah.
Or someone who, like we mentioned earlier, maybe they don't want to collect Brady cards anymore, so I'm going to trade this Brady I have, or sell this Brady I have, and use the money and buy a Mahomes card or whatever. That sale is technically, I mean, at the $600 level especially, that's going to trigger a 1099 in 2024, unless they adjust that again or keep pushing it back. But as of less than a month ago, that would have triggered a 1099K. And you're thinking to yourself, well, no, I was just selling this one card so I could buy this other one. Even though it is your hobby, there's still money changing hands.
Right.
And the IRS, whenever there's money changing hands, man, they want their taste.
Yeah. If you see, if your bank account goes up $2,000 randomly on a day, and the IRS is looking, like, whoa, what happened here, bud?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it comes back to, keeping track of your expenses. So, when you sell that card for $600, but you bought that card for $500, you're not paying taxes on 600. Like,
You're paying taxes on
you're
$100.
paying tax on the 100.
Yeah.
So that's the big lesson in this. Make sure you're keeping track of that stuff, and pay your taxes, but make sure you're paying on only what you really should be paying. And that, going back to the 1099K, that's my fear with the $600 level. Like, that's going to have way too many people that aren't even thinking about any of this, that are going to have to pay on that $600 sale that was not $600 profit. And hopefully, like, my hope is that they settle on a lower amount, but nowhere near as low as this, maybe 10,000.
Like going from 20,000 to 600,
ridiculous.
It's like,
I know,
Jesus, like out of nowhere. And to your point about expenses, like if you go to a card show, technically the mileage that you use to drive to that card show, that's an expense. I mean, that is something you can write off. I mean, I do it. I work
again,
in local government.
Speak to your accountant and find out exactly what isn't. Don't listen to Joe's advice necessarily.
But no, don't listen to my advice, but it can absolutely. If you're using, I mean, I do it in my career. If I'm traveling, I can write off those mileage, whatever the difference is between the federal mileage rate and all these.
Yeah. You're working for a company though, while you're doing that. So that makes it a little different than somebody who's technically self-employed that's running like a card business. So,
but keep track of that stuff just in case. I mean, that's my point. I mean, if it's something that potentially could be written off, absolutely keep track of it. And if your accountant says, no, you can't use it, what's the harm of writing it down? So if you can use it, you can use it, like keep track of literally everything. Cash sales, Mike, you brought up earlier, keep track of all those. I mean, there's no way to prove it, but it's better to.
But you're a lot better off having everything documented that you spent
exactly.
On. So
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that was a pretty good discussion, a little different for us this week, but hopefully, somebody might find this useful. I don't know. Who listens to us? Don't listen to us. Go to an accountant.
I guess that's the moral of the story.
The moral of the story, take what we've talked about and talk to your accountant about these different areas and let you know exactly how to do it.
Ask them to subscribe.
And you'll be fine. Absolutely. Subscribe. Like the video, comment if they want, send them here as a resource, whatever. All right, guys. Good chat this week. I'll see you next week. Take care.
See you, boys.
Adios.